We should see. Right? Yes. Good evening, everyone. Welcome. I'd like to call to order the Roscoe Village Board meeting. It's Tuesday, June 17th. Shall we stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have minutes from our meeting of June 3rd. May I have spoken?
Roll call, okay, right,
Here.
Black,
Here.
Babcock,
Here.
Simon,
Here.
and Gustafson.
Here. We have minutes from June 3rd. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
Sorry. Babcock,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
right,
Yes.
Black.
Yes.
Public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to address the board at this time? If so, please stand and state your name. You'll have an opportunity at the end of the meeting if something comes to mind regarding the agenda. Anyone? Okay. I'm going on then to the president's report. This evening, we have Marvin Keys from First Midwest Group. Welcome, and I understand want to address the board concerning a right-of-way issue.
Yeah, so we've Marvin Keys, I'm here on behalf of First Midwest Group. We have the property located at the kind of the intersection of Willowbrook and Rockton and I-90, kind of that area there. Loves on one side, Speedway on the other. So that intersection, I'm sure you're all familiar with. And I know you've had some discussions about this at a prior meeting with village administrator, at least as relayed to me, with regards to our project and some decisions that you guys were making with regard to the acquisition or the requirement of additional right-of-way at that intersection. And when I relayed to Sunil the content of what was communicated to us, he asked me to come set up a time to talk with you guys to make sure that you understand where we're coming from, what our position is with regard to this and what the impact of that decision is on this project and the future of that intersection for us. You can see the plan that's been posted up there. That property is currently one lot. We will be platting it into two lots. On the one lot would be the construction of a Starbucks anchored to a multi-tenant building. And so what I want to do is kind of back up a little bit and go through kind of just a quick timeline. I don't want to waste a lot of time, but I want to make sure you understand where we started from, how we got to where we are, and the frustration and that it puts us in when some of these decisions are made that are going to impact the viability of this project. So the journey for this project began actually in June of 2023 with the then newly elected president, met with Sunil. I think there was one trustee there as well, and discussed the village, the property within the village, and the desire for the village, amongst other topics, but the desire for the village to have commercial development at the areas where that commercial development could be viable. And Sunil took that meeting to heart, the plea that was made about we want to see more commercial development. And he tasked our team at First Midwest Group, the leasing team, to find somebody that could kickstart the development at this intersection. At that time, we didn't own 100% of the interest of all of our properties in that area. So the first thing we did, we had a partner who was in the process of primarily divesting their interest in the entire market. And so we acquired their interest in the property, all of the property in the village that we we co-owned with them. And in the meanwhile, our leasing team was out there trying to find a way to kickstart development on the project. And the way development typically works, at least for the type that we do for multi-tenant retail centers, is you need an anchor tenant. You need somebody who will go there and will be the draw for the other tenants to come, because you can't build a building and they will come. It's too much of a risk. You've got to find somebody who wants to come, or that you can convince to come and work out a deal so they get there, and it creates synergy, it creates interest. They're there, people see the traffic, they start coming, and you get the other tenants to fill it, and you do other development in the area as momentum continues. That's kind of the way commercial real estate development works. So it's not easy to find an anchor tenant. Our brokers reach out to their brokers, talk to all the different potential tenants. They have calls with the brokers, they have Zoom calls, they have meetings with them, they drive the community with them, they drive to our sites, they show them, they pitch all of our properties, give them the reasons why they think they should be there. And you find that anchor tenant. Once you find them, that's somebody who says, okay, we think we might be interested in there. You work through some preliminary deal points with them, and then they go to committee after committee after committee for these national tenants. They have property committees, they have operating committees, they have development committees that they have to go through all these hoops to jump through before they're ready to move forward with a project and start doing an actual lease with you. So we found our tenant, Starbucks, to be the anchor. We worked with them, kind of worked out all the necessary deal points to say, hey, this is something we want to do. We started working on a lease. And at that point, which was a year and a half after that initial meeting with the village president and Sunil, we had a submittal to the city. We submitted in November of 2024. Our preliminary plans for that intersection, we had a kickoff meeting. Village administrator, village engineer, your staff from the, I think, zoning, and I think maybe one other person was in that meeting. And we talked through all of the issues, the concerns, whatever it might be. So that before we move on to the final plans for that, we try to address all of that so that we're not wasting our time. We get through that meeting, there were several questions, several things we addressed, several comments, things that we talked about, changes that we tweaked on the plans. And there was a question about the county and requiring additional improvements to the intersection. I reached out to Carlos following that meeting, Carlos Molina, who's the village engineer. The city engineer, county engineer. County has control over that intersection, and said, hey, Carlos, this is what we're doing here. Here's our plans. Do you guys have any issues? Are you going to require anything from us? No, county's perfectly fine. Nothing. This is designed to handle the development at that site. There's no issues with this. Okay. So we then get our architect, we design the building, we get the architectural plans all completed, finish up the engineering plans, spend all the money, finish up our lease with our anchor tenant. I submit everything to the village in March of 2025. And as you can see, these things all take time. We send it out to the engineers, we send it out to the architects, they design it, they do. So we submit it, and then we get a comment back a month and a half or so after we submitted everything with, hey, we are gonna want more right-of-way at this intersection. And sorry, we didn't catch it before, but we have an IDS that was done years ago that says the full build out of this intersection would require additional right-of-way here. Not because of our development, just the full development of the entire area would require a taking. And what I want you to understand is I understand that you can make that decision, but that decision kills this project. Starbucks isn't waiting around for the time it's going to take for us to redesign, re-engineer. We have a delivery date for Starbucks. We can't make, if we do any changes, we're already, I was expecting zoning approval, zoning meetings, all those things to be almost done at this point. And now we're still at the point where we're waiting, or we are getting staff saying, hey, we're not gonna approve this because you need to redesign your site. And we've explained to the staff, and presumably they had explained to you that this was a marginal deal for us from the cost of doing the project, what the tenant's willing to pay to come to the community, to what they think they're gonna make. They make all their decisions. This is how much we can pay. And so that's part of what drove what we get on the site, how big it is, what variances we're gonna need, the fact that we need 2 lots. All of that is tied into making the project as a whole an economically viable project. And shifting everything 15 feet south of that intersection, or depends on where it is on the pitch points, but it basically shifts it 10, 15 feet away from where it is now. Takes the lot that's remaining, makes it a non-viable lot, which eliminates that as any potential long-term income from the overall development. All of those things work together to be, I'm going to go to Starbucks and say, I'm sorry, we can't deliver on the timeline that we agreed to. We're going to have to push this a year because they don't take delivery in certain months. And they're going to tell me, we've got a new CEO. Our CEO has killed 300 Starbucks in the last month. You can't do this. If you do this, you're going to lose this deal. And I'm going to say, I don't have a choice because it's going to take me at least a couple of months to get all the engineering redone, everything redone, go through the approval process. All those things that make up this project are going to, that's what the domino effect of what the decision is. And I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm just saying Sunil wanted me to make sure you guys understood that that's the impact on us. We're going to lose a lot of face with Starbucks. We've told them what we were going to do. Our reputation is on the line with every deal we do with every broker. And that next deal, it becomes, oh, well, they're going to say they're going to do this, but they may not be able to deliver. Those things hurt us. And so as we move forward, it has a long-lasting impact. And so I would ask that you reconsider the position of taking that additional right of way at that intersection. I don't think that, I understand the IDS shows long-term full development of everything. You'll need additional right of way there. I can tell you, I don't see that future anytime soon. Like anytime in the next 10 years, 15 years, like to see the development that would need to be there, to see the need for that additional improvements. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that it's a near term, even midterm kind of a thing. And at that point, there are other options. There are other ways to do this, other opportunities. Things change over the course of years where trends change, what you need will change, the patterns of traffic. Like there's so much that is unknown that for us, we think moving forward with the project, not requiring that additional right of way, allowing us to move forward with getting the zoning completed, doing all the things that need to be done to finish up this project would be the best interest. So I leave it at that, and I appreciate you letting me have my say and express Sunil's concern with how this impacts this project. So thank you.
We appreciate all of the information and recognize how much work and how much expense. On the other hand, I'm sure you recognize how much time and money the village had put into the planning of that intersection, and that it has been approved by the Illinois Department of Transportation. So this was our guiding principle as to how we were going to be building out there. And if there is something that our village engineer would like to add regarding the need for that right of way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Marvin hit it on the head. Carol, you did too. The need for the future is obviously very important. I understand the concern about, or the point about traffic generations changing, requirements changing, things like that. But what I can tell you is if the village secures funding for this project in the next 5 years, doing a phased approach for a full reconstruction of an intersection is not really feasible, or it's not economical. If we go in there and do improvements to that intersection, it should be one big project, we build that out for the future. While we're there, we spend the money, get it done, so we don't have to come back. So I think that presents a potential issue if we allow this development. You know, we're essentially handcuffed until the village is ready to move forward with that roadway reconstruction project. And then we're going to have significant impacts with the parking lot as designed with the parking lot. You know, that would affect them if they were ready to go forward with the project. We're then having to go to Starbucks or the tenant and say, hey, we need to do this project and we need to secure right of way. We need to redesign and reconstruct your parking lot and change, you know, your traffic flow on the site. I think it presents more issues long-term trying to accommodate that development now instead of just requiring and asking for that right of way right now. One thing I do want to state is, you know, as of right now, the way that existing development is platted, it's one lot, as Marvin said. In theory, if there were no variances being asked for right now, that Starbucks site could be built out as is because the traffic, as of right now, is set up. There's no roadway improvements that are required as part of that Starbucks project. The reason that we're asking for this right of way is because they're asking for a replat to break that into 2 lots. So that is our basically stimulus to ask for that right of way. Now, if they wanted to build that project right now, like they're allowed to do, obviously we wouldn't want to just let them we wouldn't want to allow them to do that without securing that right of way. But then traditionally, if somebody has full approvals and full zoning clearance to build something, typically there's some sort of compensation to purchase that right of way if it's private property. The need for the replat then triggers us to where we can condition our approval to secure that additional right of way. So that's kind of the crux of the matter here. You know, I will say, I do want to speak about the timeline a little bit. Marvin hit on all the key points, but one thing I did want to say is, so we had our kickoff meeting in December of last year. After 3 weeks, we had not heard anything back. Marvin had said he was going to talk to Carlos. So I actually saw Carlos at a R1 technical committee meeting. And I had asked Carlos for an update to say, hey, have you gotten a hold of Marvin? And he told me that they had, and that they had a discussion, but he wanted to then call for a meeting with the village and the county together to talk about it. So within 3 weeks after that, we had a meeting set up to where staff went down to Winnebago County. We talked about the right-of-way needs. We talked about how, as of the current platting, no roadway improvements were needed for the project. But, you know, Carlos said, yes, we have an approved IDS here. And we also knew that we had an approved IDS here. I have emails back to Fairgrams staff the day actually that we had our kickoff meeting saying, hey, you know, team, I need you to put together an exhibit based on our IDSs to show that we have additional right-of-way needs. I will say that probably should have been sent out right away. But from my perspective, I did not want to send out, you know, they asked for right-of-way with an email. I felt like that was a better conversation to have face-to-face in an actual meeting. So yeah, I think things could have gone better, at least from my perspective. I won't speak for other staff. But the fact of the matter is we've had this approved IDS, you know, the village has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in engineering to see what the full build out of that intersection is. And I'm really strongly recommending that we hold firm on this. Obviously, it's your guys' decision, but I think allowing this development right now is going to.
And I also add all of the publications, all of the information we've shared, all of the applications we may have made in the past, you know, attempting to get grants, show that plan as approved. So it's unfortunate. It's our needs and we recognize your needs. And would like you to consider, instead of having, I've heard what you said about the 2 lots making it economically viable for the project. And you have a smaller Starbucks, they said they're all workable, that in keeping our right of way, that you refrain from asking for a replat for 2 lots and just have a 1 lot and pursue perhaps a different tenant or of the larger Starbucks. And then we don't have the problems here with the flow of traffic and all of that kind of stuff. I did hear you say, you know, you juggled all the numbers and it requires 2 and you want a companion, just asking.
Right, and it's not that we continue to seek out tenants for all of the properties that we have. We had another tenant we thought was gonna co-locate with Starbucks, and they dropped out in the process. And that, it's not that we don't continue to try, but this deal, this project, it will die as a result of this. If this is but I want to point out if we presented the site and I just didn't plat it and I submitted it, there's no requirement, there's no replatting. I can cite it the way it is. There's some variances, some things that we would have to get through city council, but it's only because we're splitting a second lot. I don't have to move the building. I don't have to change anything on the site to not have any, like, you would have to buy the right of way immediately if you wanted it. Like, it's just because we're putting that line in the middle that causes this to become hey, we can condition this plat on this thing. And it's a small distinction, but I think it makes a big difference on a project where if it's approved, if it's done this way, we could just move forward. And frankly, we wouldn't even need variances if we could just kind of cut a little bit. Primarily, the variances are so we can try and make this work. We can't build, I'd love to say we build a 20,000 square foot building, and I've got one tenant. Like, I can't build a larger building on one site. It doesn't make sense. But to make it work, that's why we need that second site with the second building to make this. Hopefully we get more tenants, we build synergy, we build the momentum. And I understand what you're saying. I get it. But I do think,
Let me ask you a question, Mark.
Mhm.
And what happens if he just goes ahead with this right now? Just does what he's got on plan? What happens? Worst case scenario, what happens?
Worst case scenario, Starbucks gets approved as is with in the current location. And we have a building in a parking lot that affects our right of way, and we cannot do our full roadway improvements at the time that we're ready to move forward.
When you say we can't do it ever?
I shouldn't say we can't, but
So Marvin's saying that, one, are we ever gonna get the grant money? Two, how much revenue are we gonna lose? How much revenue are we gonna gain by doing it? Is there any?
So the only thing that I would say is, as of right now, my understanding is no additional development on any of those other corners that aren't currently platted or will be able to come to that area, because that intersection is at full capacity, and the level of service ratings, which is just the typical rating that you give an intersection for delays and safety, things like that. Those levels of service ratings are failing right now. So the county has told us in many meetings before, no additional development can happen in that area that is not currently platted. So if we had on the northwest corner that is vacant right now.
It's only because of the replat.
The replat is, in a traditional sense, the need for a replat allows us to condition the approval on securing that right of way. In a traditional development where they're not asking for a replat and everything is already accounted for, typically the owner would be able to ask for compensation for that right of way. That's how it typically works. Or you have some sort of, back and forth, the village gives something, whether it's in the form of variances for the site, and then in return, they give the right of way to, make the project happen. I can tell you the Speedway across the road, on the west side, this exact same thing happened. The county had plans for a full build out of that intersection, and a strip of land on that northern property line. And I think even it would be the eastern property line along Willowbrook. Right of way had to be secured before that Speedway was able to be built. Very similar scenario. I don't know about that. I wasn't here back when the Speedway came, but I can tell you that the village did condition the approval somehow on securing that right of way so that we were protected in the future. And that's essentially the same thing that we have right now. We just have an updated intersection design study that shows us what the full build out of that intersection looks like.
So how was that missed when all of this got started in the first place? That's what I'm saying.
So personally, I don't think it was missed. I think there was a delay in relaying that information. So when we had the first kickoff meeting, we had told the applicant or the developer that, hey, we have some traffic concerns in this area. We need to talk to the county. They're the ones that own the intersection. We'll go ahead and start those discussions. Marvin, because he has a good relationship with Carlos. He said, no problem, you know, staff, you don't need to worry about that. I'll reach out to Carlos. They did. We didn't hear an update for a few weeks. So that is when I reached out to Carlos at the R1 technical committee and said, hey, Carlos, we haven't heard anything in a while, you know, can you tell us what you had discussed with Marvin? And that's when he actually requested us to come to him so we could recap and he could, you know, tell us everything that had been discussed. And so I don't know, I mean, you know, I don't want to put Carlos in a bad position, right? But, you know, Carlos had told us that the right of way was needed. You guys have an approved IDS, intersection design study, showing that you need it, you know, secure this before you allow this development. Marvin is saying that that conversation was had and that Carlos, you know, didn't bring anything up. I don't know what the truth is because I wasn't, you know, in those conversations. I can only tell you that within a few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks after our kickoff meeting, I had started the initial conversations with Carlos. We had meetings. And then we started, that would have been in March, a few weeks before the submittal was a couple of weeks before the submittal was actually made, where we tried to make contact with the applicant if they hadn't heard anything, to just say, hey, can we have a meeting to discuss, you know, the
So what
past.
happens at the end of the day, Brandon, that we don't secure the right of way and he goes ahead with this? What happens then? Because, you know, we all voted for it because of this issue. It's, you know, oh, we gotta have the right of way.
Well, I want to remind everyone, when we had the conversation 2 weeks ago, it was the pain of the loss of this, but looking at the long picture, the long-term picture, and the long-term picture, secures development at that intersection following the plan that we paid for and the plan that was approved. And that's what all 6 of the board decided to support.
Marvin, when is the due date, delivery date for this?
It's supposed to be spring of this coming year. So March,
2026?
yes.
It's like finished, project completed.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So I guess I really am concerned about processes and communication. That's one of the things I've always harped on. And to be honest, the first I've ever heard of this was a couple weeks ago, right? I never heard the word Starbucks. I never knew any of this stuff. So the board was sort of in the blind on this. We didn't know about this. I didn't know about it. And it puts us in a tough position to hear this, like at the last board meeting and hearing everything that's went on behind the scenes, where, you know, I'm of the philosophy that more people are involved, at least the people are making the decisions, should know about what's going along the whole time. I don't think any of the board knew that. So that puts us in a tough position, but I think that, you know, it shocks me that this went on from November 2024 and I didn't hear about it till May, for last of May or beginning of June. And now I'm here to make a decision that has been pretty much, sounds like it's been made. Our hands are tied. At least that's what I'm hearing. So the frustration that I have is that, you know, the board, which is making the decision, is not privy to this and probably should have been involved in this, because I don't see how it got to this phase where we're in a position where, to William's point, where we have to make the decision to tank this based on this variance, right?
In all fairness, with a lot of developments, there is a lot, as Marvin said, that is worked out behind the scenes, so to speak, agreements back and forth, so on and so forth. And it comes to the board when there is something, a package to present to the
Well,
board,
I've heard rumors from
not the
people.
individual steps as to how you got there. So all of that, good or bad history, faced with a tough decision, and that's why we're like.
I think we're elected to make a decision, an informed decision, and, you know, we could have been we're all professionals, we could have been involved in this from the beginning, or at least further on since November. I haven't even heard the word Starbucks. I heard it from my constituent outside of this, so obviously somebody else knew about this.
Could you have done something different, Marvin, had you known about this requirement for the variance of 15 feet?
Or would you have tanked it or
The
not?
likelihood is we wouldn't have gone down the road with Starbucks because the deal is just,
It won't work.
it's not, it's a margin. I say that, it's a marginal deal. I mean, and it doesn't mean we can't make money on a deal. It just, anytime we're looking at what deal do, we look at what is the return on an investment if we put our money here versus if we put our money here. And you put your money where you can make.
My point is, you cannot do it without this.
Right, with this layout, if
Because
changes, I mean,
Cost more engineering.
for one, it's gonna be another well, we got to redesign the whole site, do all the engineering again. And the second part is the additional time that it's going to take. Those are the two components, one of which is our issue, which is, okay, now I've got an extra $10 a square foot on a building that I was building because I've got to re-engineer the whole site. And the second is Starbucks, every deal we had 3 deals. This will be the third of the 3 that dies because they had 300 deals that they
Scared to limit. This was in 40, didn't ever get disclosed. You guys went down the path and now here we are.
Yeah, like I said, I understand the position you're in. Sunil just wanted me to make sure you understood that we get to this point.
What would you
And
advise
the
us?
staff has been helpful and they've been communicative and I'm not faulting them. When I talked to Carlos, I said, Carlos, this is what was raised at the meeting. This is the intersection. Do we need to do anything to this intersection by doing this development? We're platting it. No, there's no requirements from the county with regard to it. The county's not demanding the additional right. Like this isn't a request from the county. It's the village that wants it. And so my discussion with Carlos, I think was correct. I mean, he wasn't misleading me. I said, hey, because the question was raised, the county, there may be some improvements at that intersection that are required. I went to the county and said, is there? And he said, no. If he'd have said yes, we're going to have to take 15 feet from that corner, we would have gone back to the drawing board and said, can we do this? Because losing 15 feet on that next site down makes it's already a small site. It was going to be a small single tenant user. Like we had a plan for how that could be developed. It doesn't work anymore. The circulation doesn't work. The parking doesn't, like all the things you need. And we put a lot into that like design of that corner so that we could make it not just that the deal itself works, because standing on its own, just this deal still wouldn't work. It's the potential that, okay, we still have the ability that if there's synergy, we can take a risk that, hey, if we put this here, we get this building filled, somebody will come to this property and we'll take that. Like that's part of our analysis. And it is what makes sense for us. There's no magic. I mean, there's no science to it. It's kind of magic, like what works, what doesn't work, how much risk is it to design this in this way? And we may never get that. And it won't be a great return on the project. It'll break even and okay, we miscalculated, but we take those risks all the time. But when we don't have that as an opportunity, it just doesn't make sense to do. And like I said, the whole impetus for this is the Starbucks delaying this to the next season because they have seasons where this is our delivery dates. They have set delivery dates. They'll take projects and even assuming they're still interested, it delays it. And then 2, the likelihood is it'll die. I mean, there's, I'd say 95% chance they'll move on to something else and we won't have their attention anymore. So I can't guarantee it. I just know that that's how it works for us.
But if we may go back to the central question, and I'd like to ask the board members here, we're looking at, again, it is maintaining our design, protecting what will be development in the future with a design that has been approved for the long-term gain versus this particular project. So which way do you want to go with this?
And all due respect,
You want to say something?
I have one question. Aside from the building structure itself, and considering your reputations and all that, I get that. And thank you for thinking of us. But I'm sure this entity wants that. And I'm struggling to find it, why we can't both get together unless it's a variance that we can give to knock down some parking spaces. What can we do? Is there anything that we can do to put you in this new car today?
Yeah, I understand what you're asking and
Is there anything that you can tell
talk through,
us?
I mean, internally, we kind of talk through some of the requirements. They're not village requirements. They're Starbucks requirements. Like they require a certain number of parking spaces in a center, regardless of what the village requires. They don't care. We have some communities that just say, there's no problem. As long as there's not a problem, we don't care what our ordinance says. You put whatever parking spaces you think you need. We'll look the other way until there's a problem. Starbucks doesn't care what the village will do. Starbucks says, this is our project. this is how many square feet your building has, this is how many parking spaces we require, because we don't want
We do.
to be constrained, regardless of what, if the ordinance is 4 cars per thousand, Starbucks, I think it's 5 cars per thousand, I'd have to go back and double check, but they have their standard regardless of the ordinance requirement. So we kind of look through and I don't have a solution to it. I don't have I wouldn't be standing here if I thought there was a way I could kind of draw around and eliminate 5 parking spaces and Starbucks would be okay with it. It's got to work not just for Starbucks, but we've got other tenants who go there. If they show up and there's no parking spaces, when they go look at the site, they're not going to go there. They're going to say, yeah, this is too constrained from a parking standpoint. We'll look somewhere else. So we've got to, and part of the issue is it's not a certainty. I can't tell you today 100% anything. Like I can't, we could move this, we could go down this road, Starbucks opens, everything's fine, we could shift it down and Starbucks says, hey, I'll take it later, I'll pay you more rent. Not likely to happen, but I mean, there are things that could happen, but we don't have certainty in any of these. What I do know is I've got to deal with them that they've agreed to, that I've got to deliver, that I've got to put together and move forward with them, that I'm not even sure at this point I'm going to be able to deliver. I've got penalties to them. I've got to deal with that. But I can do that and save face with them if we get through it. But if we don't, I can tell them we didn't get the approvals and it all ends. I don't have penalties. I told Starbucks I could deliver. I can't deliver. That's the reality. And it is what it is. But I know we put you kind of in a weird position as well. But I think one aspect of this that is true, which is we've done this before. We've had this issue come up before where we've built a building and there's been a design that needed additional space. And when the time came, they decided to redesign that in a different way. I don't know what the design is there, but just because it's designed a certain way today doesn't mean it can't be designed a little bit different and taking right of way from another area. I don't say that that's true here, but it's not like the design is the only possible design that is applicable to an intersection. There are a lot of different ways to skin a cat depending on what you want to do. So I would say that just because this may constrain your ability to do the design that you've got on paper today and approved, doesn't mean that there's not a different way to do that when that time comes, if that time comes, as you move forward. I just know when this intersection was designed, when all this was done and this plat was done and this development was intended, it was all done with that intersection as it is. This is, for me, this is the guy at the northwest corner's issue. If he's got to figure out a way to make this work, that he's got to figure out how to make that design work. Because when we came and got this approved with the village, like all this was done, platted, all the traffic studies were approved, everything was completed 20 years ago. And now that we're at the doorstep of finally having some additional development beyond what was done on that first phase, it's just gonna die.
Justin, your thoughts?
What does that look like of the northwest corner having to?
I can tell you that redesigning that intersection, so we have to have dual turn lanes in all directions at that intersection. So everything is shifting now, well, some to the north, some to the south. The amount of tie-in space that you have to have in the right of way to tie in your improvements and your ditches to the property lines, in conjunction with the bridge that is there currently. So shifting the center lines of the roads to shift that intersection in a certain direction, that's going to be astronomical amounts of engineering to make possible, essentially. As soon as this got brought up, we talked with our team about options, and our lead traffic engineers all but told me this is going to be virtually impossible to redesign this intersection to account for the Starbucks there at that site and factor in the bridge improvement or the bridge tie-ins and the right of way needed to actually tie in our existing ditches into the project. So they said it's going to be virtually impossible.
So to bring closure to this, I just want to poll the board members again. Are you? I'll try to phrase the question. Is it your desire to maintain the right-of-way requirements as originally designed and as publicized and as what has been approved? William?
Well, you know, it's all subjected to how long this would ever, when is that ever gonna occur? Brandon, any idea? Are we talking 10 years?
It's all dependent on project funding. I mean,
Project funding for us to do
to
that,
actual, or a development to the scale that we can require.
funding to do, we have a right to do the design.
At this point, no. But we have been applying. And we have a design that we paid more than several hundreds of thousands of dollars for. A design that is required
I
for
think
any
we all,
development at
we all
those
like to
standards.
do something here, but I don't know how we can do it. Bottom line is, you know, this is all done, most of this was done before we got here. And so I think that the dilemma is, well, we'd like to help you, but got engineering what we've already done, so I don't know what we can do. That's what Mike was saying, what we can do to get you in this car.
I understand.
That's-
So
I'm
therefore-
the same, we gotta stick with our guns. It just, I don't know if, you know, begging,
It's painful.
pleading. There's got to be, as adults, something we can do. We want you. Plain and simple. I mean, look at us, we're, our minds are churning here with, you know, we've got some development that's in front of us that's exciting as can be. I don't drink coffee, but if they do come here, I will. But there's gotta be just something you can go back to them and say, all we need is the right of way. What is it, 15 feet?
Roughly.
I get that in the engineering world, that's, you know, that's miles. But we want it, but
So therefore,
please stick to our guns.
Okay.
But I just, there's got to be something. we can do.
Justin,
Well, I mean, I was a part of the start of redesign of all that out there, and one of the biggest things that got us moving in that direction was a over $20 million development that couldn't do it because the road wouldn't handle the traffic. Right, and then we're looking at housing development, anything like that, so it really puts a strain on if we just do this and can't develop anything else, right? Just, it'll stay that way. And looking at your design, you know, you'd have to move the building in order to accommodate right away, because it take out your drive-through, right? So it's not just a matter of moving the parking lot around, right? It'd be, okay, we need to move the building now, 20 feet or whatever this way. It's not an easy thing to you, right? We want that part. If we don't want to, step on somebody's toes or whatever, we want development out there, but it's just an unfortunate thing that it got missed. It would have been one of the first things I asked was what, right, if I would have known about it.
I don't know if it's a possibility, but Lake Geneva has a similar situation. So what they did is they put a two-story Dunkin' Donuts there.
Mike,
Nice.
Mr. Simon,
Yeah, I think it's shocking that we don't know about it. It's a shame that it's come to this. I guess my question for you is, if it doesn't go your way, what happens to that property? What's First Midwest do? You guys just sit on the sidelines? Do you look for enough? Yeah, can you work with it? Future with Sunil on that lot?
We never, I mean, it's property. If we can find somebody who wants to go there, we'll. But it was a year and a half of finding somebody to go there. It'll be longer. I mean, if it's not Starbucks, that's your, like, we went to all the potential, realistic potential users for the site. I mean, like, it's not like we just went to Starbucks and we're like, oh, we found one. We shopped it across the board looking to everybody, and we'll do the same, and we'll continue ICSE conference. It's not like we'll ignore it, but it's got to be a project that we've got to fill a much bigger broader scale before the economics of a project will work, because we don't have a second lot to carry us forward. It's just, it's a reality of how those economics will work, but we're not gonna abandon all hope, but
You can redesign something to make it work for you, we would prove it.
Yeah.
But this way, you don't have a choice.
and I certainly, we will have conversations with Starbucks. I've been reluctant to talk to them and tell them this is dying, because I don't want to put it in, I don't want to give them the opportunity to walk away until I had the chance to come in here.
That we have this right away to create more business, so long-term, it's gonna be better for them.
So not going to ignore it. I'm not going to drop it. We'll do our best, but I needed this direction to know, kind of, to make sure everybody Sunil felt comfortable knowing you guys, it's a fully informed decision from our perspective as we go
I
forward.
feel like our hands are tied. I mean, if the timing is not right, it's unfortunate.
Just like Mike said, we wanna do something, so if you can go back, drawing board, make it something work. Yeah.
I'm in the car for us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Going on to the cash report and the bills. You have before you tonight expenditures. Expenditures totaling $380,573.67. Payroll, $122,798.01. The total expenditures for your approval tonight are $503,371.68. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
Second.
Black,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
Right, going on to the consent agenda for items 6, or for the consent agenda. I'll go through and read the titles and ask for a motion to approve all 3 of those as part of the consent agenda. So approval of resolution 2025-R28, authorizing an agreement with Algeon Access Technologies for the coded amount of $8,048. This is for the installation of the ADA automatic door opener in front of Village Hall. Second, in the consent agenda, approval of ordinance 2025-10, amending sections 13-355. Amending the code of ordinances to require grass and weeds be cut to a height of 8 inches as opposed to the previous 12. And last, approval of ordinance 2025, number 11, approving an amendment to the village's liquor code, clarifying the requirements for a license holder to maintain order within a licensed establishment. May I have a motion to approve those 3 items on the consent agenda?
So move.
Second. Can I ask a general question? How are we doing with code enforcement on the grass issue?
Can we address that at the end here?
Wright,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Simon.
Yes.
Under new business, may I have a motion to suspend the rules to approve resolution 2025-R29? This is for awarding the bid for our residential road project. So if we suspend the rules and make this a final vote, then we can get the timeline going a little quicker.
So moved.
Second.
Road suspension.
Black and Babcock.
Calling for the vote on the suspension.
Babcock,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Simon,
Yes.
Wright.
Yes.
May I have a motion now to approve resolution 2025-R29, awarding Rock Road Company the contract for the 2025 residential street program in the amount of $503,565.66.
So moved.
Second.
Styla,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Swam.
Yes.
Item number 10. May I also have a motion to suspend the rules for the approval of National Night Out? This is a recurring event.
So moved.
Second.
Wright,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Black,
Yes.
Styla.
Yes.
May I have a motion to approve the special event permit for National Night Out? This will take place on August 5th from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock here in front of Village Hall. And our meeting, if you remember, will be moved to Wednesday.
So moved.
Second.
Styla,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Babcock,
Yes.
Black.
Yes.
Right, under questions and reports, in response to trustee Clark's question about code enforcement and grass mowing. We are in the process of trying to find a firm that will take over our code enforcement because it's been very difficult to find a person to do that. So we are exploring that and we will come to you if we have an agreement with a firm. South Beloit uses a firm, other municipalities do, so we found a particular company that will provide the necessary services that we require. It will be a combination of in-house, but it's outsourced to them. Does that answer your question?
And to answer your other, I guess your other question, it's kind of the number we have right now. So far, we've got, I think we have 25 or so code, weed cases and currently in progress right now. We just did 2 mowings, 4 abatements. We'll have 2 or 3 more, I think, coming up next week. And then we're in different stages of weed abatements. So we do, I think currently there's 10 open cases right now.
How are we handling it while we're firm then?
Well, Jeff's still here, our current code enforcement officer is still here until he's out patient right now, but he'll be here until the end of the month. So he's still working, and he's still issuing notices. We've got pending notices right now. We have 1 cigar set for follow-up inspections. We have some that are set for forest abatement, which is us going on property, mowing it, leaving that. We've already done a couple of those. And we have some that are after the initial, looking at right now the numbers we have, but we have some that we did, some notices out, and usually those get mowed. Majority of them get mowed after the notice goes out. But right now we have 10 open cases currently.
Is he gonna stay?
But
The current one we have is gonna stay or no?
no, he is, I can actually what he's doing, but he's going on, he's got a different job lined up, yeah. Different plan, I guess, yeah. So we are looking for, and we do have a meeting stuck up to work with a firm to we'll actually be doing this, but we're in the very initial stages of talking about now. And so once we find out a little more about that, we'll look at that, we'll look at the idea of our part-time. It's just very difficult finding that code enforcement personality. So,
Also, under questions and reports, just a reminder of some events coming up this weekend. There is a market here at Main Street and Bridge from 10 to 3. And there also is a paper shredding event at the Roscoe Middle School between 1 and 3, limited to the quantity equivalent to 2 baker boxes of material. So it's a free event. So hope you can participate in those. And then also beginning at 8 o'clock at Chicory Ridge Park will be the radio flyers. Body of water, do that. So do something morning, mid-afternoon, and late afternoon in the Village of Roscoe. Public comment. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to make public comment? Anyone online? Not. Right. No need for an executive session. We have a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. 25.